5.5 inch or 7 inch? Is bigger truly better when it comes to external recording monitors for photographers? Let's find out. My name is Thomas Eisl. I'm a professional photographer from Vienna, Austria. External monitors, especially external recording monitors, are usually associated with videographers, not so much with photographers. Nonetheless, as a commercial photographer, I use external recording monitors practically every time, especially on bigger sets. So, what are the reasons for that? Well, there are a lot of reasons for that. First and foremost, an external recording monitor is just a bigger screen, and that is just very convenient for framing shots and also for eyeballing what is going on without standing next to the camera all the time. Apart from that, I'd like to highlight that I really love to use the various video-centric assist features, including focus peaking, pinch, zoom, but also all these exposure-related assist features like false color modes and zebras. You can utilize the latter for setting the exposure, and I love to do that. On top of that, some monitors like the Gimbal series of monitors, they can preview LUTs. So basically I can preload my color grading and preview it on set and set the exposure accordingly. That saves me a ton of post-processing time, and I can really recommend that. Well, if you are interested in those tricks and additional tricks, I've actually recorded a separate video on those, which you should watch after this video. I'm gonna put the link in the description. But this video is not so much about whether you should get a recording monitor or not. Well, because definitely you should get a recording monitor even as a photographer. And it is also not so much about what you can do with those monitors, but I'd like to provide you some advice whether you should get a 5.5 inch monitor or a 7 inch monitor for your photography. So let's go. Up until recently, I've used exclusively a 5.5 inch screen, and that is the Gimbal Memory 1 Pro that sits right in front of me on the table here. So let's talk about the advantages of a 5.5 inch external monitor first. But before I do that, a small word of warning. Throughout this video, I'm gonna call this 5.5 inch screen the small one. And that is a label which is not entirely justified, because 5.5 inch is anything but small, at least when it comes to camera monitors. Think about it like that. The OM system OM1 Mark II has a quite big rear display panel. It measures 3 inches. But of course, 5.5 inches is a lot bigger, so small is always relative. And that basically brings me to the first big advantage of 5.5 inch. While it is considerably bigger than your camera screen, it is not so big that you really have to worry where to put it in your camera bag. With my 2 Domke camera bags, I can basically just put this screen anywhere in the front pockets or side pockets and really don't worry too much. So that's a big advantage. Another big advantage of the relatively light weight of this monitor is that I can put it on my camera's hot shoe and not worry about straining the hot shoe too much. I'm confident that even when I bump the screen, I won't damage the hot shoe, at least not on my professional grade OM system OM1 Mark I and Mark II cameras. So really, size and weight, it is big, but it is not so big that you have to put a lot of thought into how to handle this piece of equipment, right? There is another slight advantage when it comes to size, and that is power consumption. The display panel of a 5.5 inch screen just does not use so much power. I need a little bit less batteries with the 5.5 inch screen. So all these advantages are of course fine, but nonetheless there is a significant disadvantage in practice, which is obviously related to size. And here is the thing. Although 5.5 inch is really big, it is not so big that I can just look at the image and do everything without the need of zooming in from time to time. Especially when working with ultra-fast manual focus lenses, like the Voigtlander 29mm f/0.8 Nocton, well, then I really have to zoom in from time to time to check whether I nailed critical focus. And that is, of course, a bit slow onset, because I focus, I zoom in, I zoom out, I check the framing, I zoom in again, I check the focus again, and then I zoom out again. So that is really sometimes quite annoying. And 5.5 inch, at least for regular viewing distances, is just not big enough to do that reliably without zooming in. So that is that. Apart from that, 5.5 inch, I'd like to summarize that really quick, is bigger than your camera screen, yes, but sometimes you have to really zoom in to get the job done every single time. All in all, this size represents an excellent balance between size and usability. But of course, 7 inch can be the solution, especially to the latter problem. So let's move on to the 7 inch monitors next. In the world of professional filmmaking, 7 inch monitors are very common, and there are good reasons for that. Unfortunately, in the world of professional photography, big monitors like the Gimbal Memory 7 Pro here are not very common. And really, photographers are missing out big time, pun intended. Let me put things into perspective. When comparing the 5.5 inch Gimbal Memory 1 Pro to the 3 inch screen of the OM system OM1 Mark II earlier, we get about the same ratio that we get when comparing a 7 inch Gimbal Memory 7 Pro with a 5.5 inch recording monitor. So the viewing experience that you get with a 7 inch monitor is spectacular. In this case, seeing is believing. You really have to experience that to fully understand how immersive and how clear it is when working with a 7 inch monitor on set. There are so many advantages to that. First and foremost, and I already hinted at that earlier, getting critical focus with ultra-fast lenses is way easier, and you usually don't have to resort to pinch zoom. You can just focus the lens and judge from the huge image on the 7 inch screen whether you are in focus or not. And this really helps to keep things moving very fast on set. That is something I truly appreciate. By the way, that is also the reason why filmmakers love 7 inch monitors, because when you film a take, you cannot pinch zoom in and frame the shot properly at the same time. So you have to have a monitor which is big enough so that you can properly focus the image without using any of these focusing aids. So really, 7 inch is great for focusing. But there is also another often overlooked advantage of a 7 inch monitor, and that is heat dissipation. Interestingly, the Gimbal Memory 1 Pro 5.5 inch monitor needs a built-in fan to cool the device down during long shoots. The 7 inch Gimbal Memory 7 Pro does not need a fan, because heat dissipation with the much bigger chassis is just a lot better. So although both have the same CPU and basically produce the same amount of heat when it comes to CPU, just because the whole thing is bigger, it does not need a fan, even though the LED panel is bigger, which of course also produces more heat. So that is pretty neat, I'd say. When it comes to power consumption, a bigger screen obviously needs more power. But interestingly, it does not need that much more power. And the reason for that is actually pretty obvious. Whether a monitor is big or small, the CPU it needs is usually the same. So you don't need more power to power the CPU. However, you need a bit more power to power the bigger screen panel, but again, that is not so significant, as these high-end LED panels are, well, very power efficient actually. So that was quite a surprise to me that I found, well, I do need more batteries in the field. With the 7, I don't need that many more batteries. So that is pretty convenient. One big disadvantage of having a big monitor is that you have to put a little bit more thought into how you're gonna mount the monitor on your camera. While theoretically you can put the 7-inch monitor on your camera's hot shoe, especially if you're using a high-end professional grade model like an OM system OM1, you don't really want to do that because you don't want to put so much weight and so much strain on the hot shoe of your camera. Especially if you bump the screen against any hard object, you risk breaking the hot shoe, and that's a costly repair. So what you want to do instead is get a camera cage, put it on your camera and mount the monitor on there. At first glance, that sounds like a huge annoyance and something that is really why you want to get a smaller monitor, but in practice I found that to not be a big issue. A camera cage, for example, from SmallRig for the OM system OM1, Mark 1 and Mark 2 weighs only a bit over 100 grams, so that is not a lot, and you can conveniently mount and unmount it. It attaches to the tripod socket of the camera and it does not add really that much bulk. So having a camera cage is not a big deal in practice. And depending on camera model you are using, some camera cages provide additional protection for the camera, so maybe having a camera cage is a good idea even when you are not using a 7-inch monitor. So should you get a 5.5-inch monitor or a 7-inch monitor for your photography work? Well, it really depends, but my recommendation is to get both if your funds allow you to do so, because you're gonna end up in situations where you prefer a 5.5-inch monitor over a 7-inch monitor and vice versa. I really appreciate the portability of a 5.5-inch monitor. I can just toss it in the camera bag and not think about it. It's just there, and in case I need it, I'm gonna pull it out, and I get all these amazing assist features. I get the ability to record B-roll for YouTube and Instagram and so on and so forth. It's just great to have that in the camera bag. But when I'm on a professional job or when I'm doing wildlife photography and staying in the same spot for a prolonged period, especially with the camera on a tripod, I really love having a 7-inch monitor in front of my eyes. The viewing experience is just absolutely amazing. You really have to see that for yourself to really grasp the difference between 7-inch and 5.5-inch. As a long-term user of 5.5-inch monitors, I would not have thought that to be possible, but it is really a huge difference, and having a 7-inch monitor with the extra weight, including the camera cage, really pays off in many situations, and I can truly recommend getting a 7-inch monitor, just like I can recommend getting a 5.5-inch monitor. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel and following me on other social media. If you want to support my work, become a channel member and get access to exclusive channel member only videos. Becoming a channel member really helps me to keep this YouTube channel up and running and provide content that is hopefully beneficial for your photography. See you next time.